Back here on a Monday morning spectacular. Jeff Kolpak will join us about a half hour. Guy Fridley from Dickinson on the changing over to the Mavericks coming up in about an hour's time as well. We do it each and every Monday at 9:30. We visit with our guy Sam Herder from Hero Sports, BetMGM, as we get the lowdown on everything going on in FCS football. Last week we started our look at the top spotlight games for the FCS. We'll do it week by week as we're now under 100 days out from the start of the FCS season. For everybody else, we're 104 days out from August the 30th, which, we're wishing summer away because football is right around the corner. We're going to get to that in a second. First, there was a tweet. You saw it. I saw it yesterday. I want to show everybody else on our show today because if this doesn't tell you where everything is in FCS football, then nothing will. Elon, which has been okay, put out this tweet yesterday saying that about their offensive line. The last 2 years, they produced 2 players that have earned 6-figure Power 4 deals, paved the way for all conference selections at running back 3 years in a row. I will open up the floor to you on what you make of this.
I don't mind it, actually. I know how it'll rub, fans or whatever the wrong way, but they're doing publicly what I've heard other coaches say that they're starting to do on the recruiting trail, and that's, lean into it a little bit of, and I still, because you hear a lot that the FCS is the new feeder program to the FBS, or it's the new JUCO. I push back on that phrasing a little bit just because, again, there's more guys, more standouts that stay than leave. And I know a lot of fans think once a guy gets good in the FCS, he's leaving.
Dunzo.
That's actually not the case. It's just there still are a lot of good players that leave after their sophomore years. And so in that essence, it does feel like the FCS has become a developmental program for the FBS. But I think it's almost turned into a recruiting pitch for FCS coaches where, I've heard all across the country that the level of talent the FCS is getting out of high school has never been better because FBS is spending less scholarships on high school recruits. And so now the recruiting pitch for the FCS is, hey, we all know high school recruits, most of them, unless they're in the Dakotas or the Montana, they want to play in the FBS, right? If you're in Texas or the Carolinas, Ohio, wherever, you want to play in the FBS. But some of these guys, maybe they only get 3, 4, or 5 FBS offers. They're not getting the FBS offers they want. FCS teams can come in and say, hey, we think you can be an impact player for us within 2 years. Come here, develop for 3 years, become an FCS standout. And hey, if you love our school, you love our town, you stay here for 5 years, that's great.
Awesome. Yep.
But if you want to test the waters, now all of a sudden the 4 FBS offers have turned into 12 FBS offers because you're an FCS standout and your NIL is going to go up. So come here, develop, get on the field right away, and then you can test the waters again. You don't love that, but at the same time, it's better. You lean into it a little bit, and it's better than completely ignoring it and not somehow trying to use this to your advantage of making some sort of interesting recruiting pitch to get these recruits that want to go FBS, but they end up going to the FCS.
I agree with you on the last part. When I saw it and you tweeted out, and that's where I saw it yesterday, it rubbed me the wrong way. And then I went back and looked at it and if this is a way for them to either keep their players or to get players to come, you got to do what you got to do this day and age. I have less problem with it now than I did, say, 24 hours ago when I saw it. It's just this is where we're at. You tweeted it's the new age recruiting tactics. You're exactly right. This is what schools have to do to get in the ball game.
Yeah, and I think more schools are doing this in living rooms. Or
maybe not
phones,
publicly.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they're just doing it publicly so everyone sees it and goes, so you're almost advocating for your guys to leave in a sense. Because you don't want to totally normalize it. You don't want to say, hey, you're a first-team all-conference guy, pop in the portal, we'll help you go wherever you want. You don't want to normalize it too much. But I also know there have been some examples of a guy, for an example, let's say he was a third-team all-conference player in 2023, and he wanted to test the portal waters as a redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, or whatever. I know there's been examples of coaches saying, hey, stay here one more year, because instead of being a third-team all-conference FCS guy, if you stay here for one more year, you're going to be an All-American.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your NIL deal is going to go from $60K to $500K. And that guy did decide to stay, and he did become a standout, and all of a sudden his NIL that he's getting this year is much higher than what it was last year at this time. So I know there are examples, too, of coaches saying, hey, we understand you want to leave, wait one more year and your NIL bag is going to go up even more, which again is just so backwards of what we're used to.
Yes.
But if you're a coach, you kind of have to lean into it a little bit.
I've also, we didn't have a chance to talk last week. You were gone. The ACC, I think, had its spring meetings, and I believe one ACC coach told Brett McMurphy, and I saw this because we chatted about it at the end of last week, that all the players that are left available in the portal are, quote, trash. What do we make of that? Because that's not flattering for any FCS teams looking for players right now.
Yeah, it's hard to know if it's the ACC coach saying like there's no guys in there that are going to make a difference on our team.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they won't make a difference for a MAC team or for a Sun Belt team or even an FCS team. You just never know. It's hard to put everyone into one bucket. I know and I kind of have this mindset too when I see this Big Ten guy or whatever goes to this school, like that's a splash, but at the same time he didn't play at all at that Big Ten school for maybe a reason, and he goes to the FCS, and maybe they find out, okay, this guy just the college speed even at the FCS level is too fast for him. There's a reason why he didn't play.
Yeah.
But there are some other examples as well of guys they didn't play just because their path to the field was blocked, and all they at their FBS school, and all they need is an opportunity to get on the field, and then they flourish in the FCS because they just needed that opportunity. So I'm sure by this point, if you're adding guys. And this goes for FCS to FBS guys as well. Like if you're an FCS transfer and you're landing at an FBS school right now, you're probably not going to be a starter because those spots are already filled. It's the same thing with FBS to FCS guys. A lot of those guys coming down to the FCS, any additions you see FCS teams make most likely are going to be rotational guys. Maybe they'll find a diamond in the rough, but at this point, as we're nearing summer, a lot of these guys still in the portal, they're still in the portal for a reason.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think you have to we've talked about this several times, and I've said this late on the show because the Bison added a guy from James Madison late last week and Antoine Booth. Like, okay, again, take this with caution. Like they're adding for depth. This is guys they hope they can play. We're not sure how good they are, and that's the best way to go about, in my opinion, on evaluating guys that are dropping down, I think, certainly from FBS to the FCS level. Two other things I want to get to before we start previewing the spotlight games. I got an email actually comes in to ask Sam, is there an update on SAK State and its application for FBS football? What do you know on that?
So ever since that report came out that they planned on, doing the application and applying for the waiver and all that, basically, the process is the FBS Oversight Committee has to approve it, which is made up of FBS commissioners and ADs. But then if they approve it, it goes to the Division I Council, and then they kind of give the final stamp of approval. Since that announcement was made, or the report was made, the FBS Oversight Committee has had 2 meetings, and they have yet to discuss it. So they have yet to really vote on it or anything. And I'm sure that's probably frustrating for SAK State because they need to know pretty soon, hey, in a year and 3 months, are we playing Big Sky football or are we playing FBS independent football? Is our Olympic sports, are we in the Big Sky Conference or do we have to go to the Big West or the WAC? And so they got to know soon, ideally before July 1st. And the FBS Oversight Committee, their next meeting is early June, I want to say. And then the Division I Council meets like June 24th and 25th. That's also when the Division I Council is going to approve the 12-game FCS season. And so a part of this, of why it hasn't been brought up just yet from the FBS Oversight Committee, just could be the in-the-weeds governance structure of the NCAA. Because remember, with the FCS 12-game voting, they couldn't vote on it officially in April, but they did a straw poll vote and passed it unofficially, but they couldn't vote on it officially until May. I don't know why they couldn't approve it in April, but it had to be May. That could be the same with the FBS Oversight Committee. They might just be saying, let's talk about it in early June, approve it, not approve it, and then pass it on to the D1 Council later this month. That could be why. But I know from SAK State's perspective, they were hoping to get an answer before the end of the school year, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case for SAK State on whether this waiver gets approved or not.
Well, and to some extent, the Big Sky needs to know as well, like, are you in or out? Because we need to know for our scheduling purposes what's going on.
Yeah, because you drop them out of your scheduling and
Right.
you have to, rewrite the whole thing. And I don't think the Big Sky, if they do lose Sac State, I don't think they're going to go out and try to add anyone.
No.
I don't think they have to do that. But again, from a scheduling perspective, it would be important to know pretty soon if they're going to have to adjust schedules in a
One
little
other
more
thing
than.
too, yeah, I got to add on the WAC stuff. I was told, and I'm sure you probably heard the same, that because I was once the Summit League Missouri Valley deal became official, I was told nobody from the WAC wants to make a move because they don't want to be the first to leave if there's potential money that can be gathered up there. That's what the holdup is with Utah Valley, with Utah Tech, Dixie, the former Dixie State, Southern Utah. The Texas schools are being considered, and they're obviously in the WAC as well. So it's kind of whoever's going to blink first on this, and then we'll finally find out if any movement's going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of just one big domino waiting to
Yeah.
fall. Then everything else falls into place. One team decides to go here, then another team joins. That makes two other teams decide to leave as well, and go somewhere else. And so the WAC always seems like it's on shaky ground, but especially now, just with so much movement happening out
Yeah.
west, it seems like eventually that is going to hit the WAC. But like you said, it's just kind of waiting to see which team decides to first, and then I think everything else falls not into place, but everything kind of the dominoes fall from there once that first one falls.
All right, Sam. So let's talk the spotlight games for week 1. We did week 0 last week. There's not really a whole lot. That will change next year, as you mentioned, with 12 games. That's going to become, I believe, the FCS domain. We'll wait and see on that. I was going through this last night, and I shared it with you this morning. We got some dandies to start the year. There's two that pop off the page to me. The Montana State Oregon game, because I'm really interested to see what Montana State is like, and then obviously the Sac State SDSU game. What other ones stand out to you?
Yeah, those two will be interesting just to see, like you said, how Montana State stacks up a little bit. You don't expect them to go there and win, but how long do they stick around with Oregon and compete?
Yeah.
Idaho, it was a one-score ball game in the middle of the fourth quarter, and so just interested to see how Montana State looks. I think offensively they might look a little bit different with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback as well. But I think the Bobcats are going to be really good on the O-line, D-line, really good at running back. So they're built pretty well. So we'll see about that one. The Sac State, South Dakota State one is super interesting. That's almost one game where, again, is Sac State even going to be eligible to be preseason ranked? I don't know, because if they get approved for the FBS, they're not eligible for the playoffs, so then they won't be eligible for the media poll. But if they are eligible to be voted in the preseason top 25, I could see Sac State between 10 and 15, just with the talent they're bringing in. But it's one of those games where I almost don't want to predict when that week comes, because I don't know how good Sac State is going to be. I think they're going to be really talented, but how does that all gel? I think South Dakota State is going to be really good, but are they going to be elite? I don't know about the Jackrabbits there, and so that's a really interesting one as well. Another one as well is Idaho, Washington State.
Yeah.
Pretty much Idaho versus South Dakota State 2.0 there, but it's interesting. I remember when Jason Eck left for New Mexico, I remember thinking, like, yeah, he's eventually going to go to the FBS, but if he would have been a bit more patient, a better job would have opened up, and then 2-3 weeks later, Washington State opens up, and it's like, oh, Eck would have been a really good candidate, for that job. But, just to see how Washington State gels, they have 20 plus South Dakota State guys joining the Washington State guys. Like, how does that all gel? A lot of those South Dakota State guys are vying for starting spots. And so how does that all mesh? And, Idaho, I think, landed on its feet pretty well, considering the talent they left, the coaching staff that left there. They brought in an FBS transfer. I think his name is Joshua Wood, who has some FBS starting experience. So Idaho has a good quarterback there that's come in. I think Idaho should be really good at running back. Offensive line should be decent. Front seven should be decent. So that's an interesting one as well to keep an eye on. And, two teams that are really close to each other as well in Idaho, Washington State.
The other one, had USD not lost everybody, South Dakota, Iowa State would have been, it's not nearly as interesting as it would have been about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, because South Dakota lost, three starting offensive linemen, 3 of them really, really good guys as well that are probably NFL draft prospects, top wide receiver, top tackler, top returning player in the secondary. And so I still think South Dakota is a top 5 team. I think Bauman and Pierre are probably the best quarterback running back duo in the FCS. But, from there, how good is this South Dakota team? Are they still the top challenger to NDSU? I've probably bumped them back from that to being preseason 4 or 5, somewhere around there. But still, you want to see them compete pretty well. Aiden Bauman going back to Iowa State is
Yeah, that's
that
juicy.
was so long ago that he was there, but it's still kind of an interesting angle
Yep.
of him going back there. But I think anytime you have a starting quarterback coming back for South Dakota, that helps. And then Pierre, I think, is probably the best running back in the FCS. So those are two good spots to start, but who's blocking for them? Who's Bauman throwing to? How good is the defense? There's a lot more questions about the Yotes now than there were 2-3 months ago.
No doubt. I would think as well, before we go, we'll know in about 10 days' time the TV lineup for the first couple weeks of the season. That game, USD, Iowa State, the UND K-State game, the Montana State, Oregon game, I don't know if they automatically get pushed to streaming. They might get picked up, by Fox or ESPN. I wouldn't surprise me on the USD and the Iowa State game, maybe UND K-State. I would imagine that's probably a Peacock only for Montana State and Oregon, but you never know. Maybe FS1. We'll see.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe a Fox Sports 1 we'll get either South Dakota or UND. And the Fighting Hawks going to Kansas State. That's another intriguing one. I think I don't know where specifically, but I'll probably have UND in my preseason top 25. Despite not making the playoffs last year, I think they have a chance to be good offensively. I like UND's offensive line. I really like their running backs. We'll see what the quarterback situation is, but going back, I thought Ronfo actually had a pretty good year for his debut season. I thought he was pretty efficient and threw, pretty good deep ball at times. So we'll see if the San Diego State transfer will come in and take that starting spot or not. But I kind of like the momentum UND has right now, kind of like a jolt in a sense. You can kind of feel it from afar with UND. So again, similar to Montana State, Oregon, do I think UND will go into Kansas State and win? No, but do they stick around for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters and make it a game? I think that even when you lose to an FBS team, how you lose in a sense, I know quality losses aren't a thing, but how you look in those losses to FBS opponents, I still think can tell us a little bit about what type of team you have.
Great to see you, bud. Thanks for the time as always. We'll do this again next week, okay?
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:30 this time of the year. We're going through the spotlight games. You saw them there, and we'll tweet that out after the show is done to get ready for the start of the college football season. We'll break, come back, wrap up our first hour. Big second hour on tap here on a chilly Monday. Back on Hot Mic right after this.